Hey, welcome to OEM Live. We are going to have a jam-packed day as we talk through BMW. I'm super excited about the show. I don't know about a lot of y'all, but I didn't fix a lot of BMWs growing up. So going through the show.
Shocking in Arkansas, you didn't fix a lot of BMWs.
Well, we have them here. I didn't get a chance to get my hands on them at all. So, but this was a great show to do all the research for, and there were some great things that we found, and I learned some things. I want to give
You were like a kid in the candy store doing research.
I know, I was super happy.
That's because she never believed me when I told her it was on Tiz and what was there, and she had to keep proving me I was wrong, and she keeps looking them up, and she goes, oh, wow. And at first it was, well, we'll talk about it afterward, how difficult it was and what you found after a little bit of time.
Well, it was a lot of fun. So first, a big thank you to Josh Fallbush and David Sosa from BMW for their help in taking the phone calls and making sure that we were pointed in the right direction. We don't, one of the things that's different about our show is we don't really involve the OEs a lot. We use this from a kind of a peer-to-peer perspective. It allows us to talk about a few things a little bit more freely and not have to deal with the attorneys of the OEs, which are bid for me and you.
Why?
But,
I didn't do nothing.
But they were super helpful to answer some of the questions that I had last week, so I do appreciate that. So let's dive in, guys. What's really interesting about BMWs that we found for this, and through my conversations with a lot of people across the country, is there really and truly is only one place. You know, we usually talk about some free sources and some things you can go to. There's really only one place to get information about repairing BMWs, and that's BMW.
Yep.
So we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on the OE site.
You know, to be fair, there is some stuff on ALLDATA, but if you really want to fix a BMW, got to go to BMW.
Yeah, and there's some changes that are coming that we're going to mention today that aren't on the site yet, but that we know is going to come very quickly, and then we know that some of these third-party sites. So I never go too far in any show without going back to the iCar Repairability Technical Support Portal. Now they don't have a whole lot for BMW available, but again, if you're an adjuster, an independent appraiser, and you don't necessarily have the access to the OE site for the estimates that you're writing, this is a fantastic resource to go to. So if you go to the RTS portal, click the OEM information on the left-hand side of the screen, go down, find the little BMW logo and click there. You will take you to a screen with a collection of what iCar does have. So there are the videos there on the right-hand side about how to use the website when you get into the BMW Tech portal. I highly recommend watching them. Yep. In fact, I was referring back to them a couple of times during the research process to make sure I was in the right place. There's not a lot available BMW iCar news, so I know in the past episodes we've talked a lot about how there's articles there that can help direct you in estimating or making the decision process. Not a whole lot of articles there, but BMW and iCar have the partial part replacement matrix, and once you get into the matrix, you pick your vehicle, and then you get a breakdown on what's available from the OE. So this is not the procedures. You can't click it and get the procedures. You would still have to pay to get a hold of them. But it's a great screen to let me know right away, if I don't have OE access, if I'm not the estimator in the shop or whatever, that there are some options available that I either, one, know I need to dig more, or two, I need to ask the repairer or someone at the parts department or whatever to find that information for me.
Yeah, and this is super helpful as well. So you see that, at least you know what you're going to find when you actually pay the money too.
Yeah, so you don't waste, like for all the OEs, I don't want to waste time, but if I go looking for a procedure and then I find the procedure's not there, maybe I've paid for a day pass, I feel a little cheated. So this is a great service for my car. At least you know if you're going to find anything there. So guys, let's just jump right into BMW's website. So the website is bmwtechinfo.com. You can link to it obviously from the iCar portal. You can link through OE Connection and some of the other linking sites, but eventually you're going to end up right here. And there are 3 ways to join. So there's 3 ways to play, right? There are a 24-hour subscription is $30. A 1-month subscription is $250. Or you can do it for a year for $2,500. And Larry, what'd you say that about came out to?
It's like $6.80 a day. Yeah, $6.90 a day.
Yeah.
Which I'll be honest with you, the other ones were around $4 a day. If you price it out per day for the month, it's actually cheaper to buy for the year than it is to buy for the month. Obviously, there, $250 a month times 10 months is $2,500. You're getting 12 months for the year subscription, so it actually pays off to get the yearly if you get a lot of them in. But that's usually for an approved or certified shop that's going to be getting those in. And if you have to get on for the day or something like that, it's not so bad. $30.
Yeah, again, like we had said with the first episode with Toyota, you got to take a look at your book of business. You got to see how many of these cars you've been getting in over the last year, 2 or 3, to make a determination on what the most cost-effective solution for you is. And then, Mark, you had a great point yesterday when we were talking. Billing out $30 on the estimate for that one-time research fee is completely reasonable.
Yeah. Well, and then, on top of it, it's completely reasonable. But if you're going to repair the car, and if you get in trouble with one of these cars, especially,
yeah,
and these are different. These are not like
it could
a normal,
be very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're changing a mirror, let's say on a car, on the door, let's say you're going to change the outside mirror, you could easily spend 2-3 hours researching everything that's involved with that. And literally, I think most mirrors on BMWs is probably a half hour to change it. Many of them, you don't even have to take the whole door panel off. You just take the little tab at the top, or if you got to take the door panel off, it's 3 screws and you're done. So
isn't it nice to know that before you take the whole door panel off?
Well, listen, a lot of times you look at it, people get scared of these things because they don't know how they come off. The Germans make everything very simple in the way they do stuff, but you just got to know what to pry or pick at so that you don't break it. Sometimes there's a little trap door behind the door handle. Sometimes there's a piece of chrome molding or carbon fiber molding that you got to pop off, and there's screws behind there. Some of the door panels pull straight off, and you need door clips. Some door panels you got to slide up. So reading the instructions can help you up, but you can spend a lot of time on that and then find out what's in the mirror assembly. Is there re-aiming? Is there this? Is there that has to be done to this computer system just to put a mirror on? And literally, you could spend, like I said, 3 hours looking up all the information and reading it, and a half hour putting the mirror on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for $30.
And for $30,
it's a shortcut.
You have all the answers.
You're better off doing it that way than breaking a door panel that could be $1,200-$1,500 on these cars.
Yeah, and it doesn't glue back on.
No.
Tried that. Just to say. Anyway, so after we decide what method we're going to use, whether we're going to do the monthly, the one-time access for 24 hours, or our yearly subscription, this is the screen we're going to get brought to. We're going to enter that login name and password, and it's going to take us to a screen defaults that looks like this. Now, because we have not entered a vehicle yet, and we don't have a VIN or anything that we've selected, the default is basically every bulletin that's out there right now on every on BMW by body number. This is something most of us, if we don't fix a lot of Europeans, we're not used to a car having a body number. To us, it's a Malibu or it's a Camry.
You have to get in tune with that, because when you do write estimates or you do look up parts or repair procedures, it's going to be by body number, and you have to really kind of get used to that. And even a reference amongst the schools, when you're in a school, you don't talk like a 3 series. You have to talk the body number, which we'll learn that in a few minutes.
Yeah. So right now you're looking at this default on this screen. So where it says service information, that's going to be every kind of bulletin that's out there right now. As we get into the part where you actually select your vehicle, it's going to narrow it down to let you know what's out there on that particular vehicle that you're working on at that time.
And to show you how quickly they change information, everything highlighted in yellow is within the last 30 days.
Right.
So half of those are the last 30 days, and the other half are older than that. But, aftermarket sources in companies like that are not going to be as up to date that fast.
No, and it's the little things that, change that we have to know about. Going over from the top after we looked at the service information tab, the next tab up there is called reference information. This was one of my favorite places. Obviously, vehicle-specific information by VIN is what we need to repair the car, but there's a lot of great resources here. If it was me, and I was still back in the days of being an adjuster or a claims manager or whatever, I would spend the $30 just to come in here one day and have access to this information under this tab alone.
Well, that you'll pay for.
Yeah, there's some great things there. That I'll pay for. Yeah. Now you're getting it. I wondered how long it was going to take. God, I owe you $20, Mark. He got on faster than I thought it was going to be. I was for sure it was going to be Halloween before Larry would catch on. But he's already got it in March. So there's just some great stuff here. And just as an example, if you scroll down under that and you get to body and paint, and you click that, you'll see all of the little things that open up for you there. And that's where you're going to find their small damage, medium damage repair manuals, their plastic repair, collision estimating and trainer. You're going to find their aluminum and carbon fiber. It's almost like a little mini iCar in here. Yeah. And it's fantastic. some of the stuff that you have. So if you click body and paint, and then we went down there and where it said medium damage and plastic repair, there are the courses.
I mean, I even recommend new technicians, like young technicians. You'll get more information for $30 than you can probably get from any other class. Just spend your time.
Yeah, poking around and reading through it.
Yep.
And you were telling me that like Randy Perfetta and some other people probably played a role in some of this development.
I believe that, yeah, Randy, along with Summit Consulting, who do a lot of the training for the dealerships and for the certified and approved shops across the country, had a lot to do with, I think, some of this technical training being put together and being out there. Randy originally started with Carolina Metropolitan, actually, with the Demerists, and then he moved on to Toyota. And from Toyota, I know he wound up with, AutoNation for a while, I think, and then he went back up to Carolina Corporate, and now he's back with Summit, working with them and giving them some of his knowledge and stuff like that. He runs a really good. They got a customer service class that we've been attended to. That we've attended. That was really, really good. He actually does a pretty cool thing that I thought was a great idea. He calls up all the shops who go into the class, and he tape records what they talk about.
Oh.
Like on the phone, like how you answer the phone, and then he plays them, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad." And like no one really wants to say anything. And I remember one of my clients I was there with the class with, he actually said, "That's my guys. We need the most help." And he actually hired Randy, and Summit to come in afterwards and try and train his people for better customer service on the phone lines. So the Germans overall do a great job with their hands-on training, their access to their repair information once you're on their program, these mini classes or classes on their particular stuff, and then obviously when you go to their hands-on training, which is why the Germans are so much far superior. I always talk about it, and those out there who are watching this, who have been through German training, realize that. Those who haven't are like, yeah, okay, what's so great about them? And it's really a great program that they have put together that you can get this access on there.
Yeah.
But this is available to anybody. You want to pay the $30
$30,
a day,
it's there.
You can go in there and you can go read some of this information. It's great.
It's fantastic. So if Randy put it together, or whoever within BMW that put these together, as I was flipping through them yesterday, and kind of going through the updates and stuff, they're awesome. I mean, they're something that I think everybody should have. If you don't understand a lot of dent repair, and not just how to fix a dent, but the theory in dent repair and where you put your keys and where you make a pull and why and how it affects body shaping, all of that is in that medium damage class. I mean, a lot of the science behind it.
They even have an aluminum panel repair class too, on how to do aluminum panel repairs and stuff. And a lot of their procedures that are in the specific car stuff is also in the generalized area here about what you can and can't fix and how much material you're allowed to put on there and stuff of that matter.
It's great stuff. I'm not, we talk about it often, I'm not a big fan of printing and saving a lot, because then when this used to bite us, honestly, in the insurance industry, we'd put out claims guides, and you were supposed to update your claim guide every year, but someone didn't. Someone always squirreled it away on the bottom of their desk, and then we'd get a discovery notice for a lawsuit, and someone would bring out the claim manual from 1982. and then we're taking depositions on a 1982 claims manual going, we updated it 26 times since then or whatever. So I'm not a big fan of printing and saving, because that always happens. You tend to refer to it, or you make copies and you hand it out, and then you miss the update. But this, if I had new techs, like you said, Mark, if I had new estimators, even if we don't fix a whole lot of BMWs, this stuff is gold. Kind of like Toyota in their classes in the first episode had some good stuff. If scrolling across, we're going to come back to the OSS one, but if you go across the top to tools and equipment, if you've ever wondered about what tooling and equipment, mechanical and or collision repair that BMW requires, I don't want to say approves, but these are the required things to fix their vehicles.
It's approved equipment that's required to do the repairs. And without that stuff, you could wind up getting yourself in a lot of trouble, because I've been involved in cases where the shops didn't have the proper equipment and couldn't prove they even rented it, borrowed, or anything. They said, no, that's my equipment. And it's like, just that alone can get you in trouble, besides the bad repair. If you did a perfect repair on a non-approved piece of equipment, you're probably not going to get investigated. But if you did really crappy repairs and they're incorrect, and now you also have all the tooling that's not correct, it just adds to that snowball that's going to blow up against the shop.
Yeah, but we're going to, and what you say, that it's the only time you get in trouble is when things go wrong.
When things go wrong, like I said, if you did a great job,
that's when people start looking.
Yeah, a great bad job.
Listen, I've been involved in plenty of times where I've had, we'll say BMW quarter panels. But for the most part, a lot of people watching this know that they get rivet bonded on. I've seen them welded on. But they're so badly welded on, it's like there's a free lake that comes in the trunk or in the back seat. And, I didn't know it had the pool option in it.
The portable pool.
The portable pool. Yeah. And that's what starts off this. But if you welded it on perfectly, and there was just a problem with the paint job, I probably wouldn't get a phone call, or you wouldn't get a phone call. It would just be sanded and painted or buffered or something. It's that bad of a job, and then it snowballs from there.
Yeah.
You know, like they couldn't even do a good bad job.
Yeah. But that's where you find all of your tool and equipment information. As we go through the rest of this, we're actually going to get referred back here a couple of times.
And they do give you links to where to buy the tools. You can buy from the dealer services, which is usually provided by Snap-on Services, and then, or you can buy from a direct tool dealer that actually sells the equipment.
Yep. So let's go back to one tab over for that OSS tab. So this is where you're actually going to get into the collision repair information. So when you highlight the top of that OSS tab, you drop down, it'll say repair manuals and wiring diagrams. You want to click there, and then that's going to open up where it says air, and air is where we're going to find our collision repair information. So after the site comes up, when that green square comes up and says start, it is ready for you to go. Now, if you guys remember, if you go all the way back to the very first log on when we hit the screen where it says OSS system status and we have all the little green checks there, that gives us that green square. So we know everything's up and online, they're not updating the system, we're good to go. We are ready to find our repair information. So I click start, and it immediately takes me to a screen where it's asking for the VIN number. You can do a lookup by body code, if you know the body code.
If you know the body code, right.
I don't know the body codes.
And listen, it's like I've said before, numerous shows, Mark and I have said it, iCar, whoever's been here from iCar, usually Jason, we've always said the same thing. Always put the VIN when you're using the OEM website. I mean, I know All Data has a thing for the VIN also, but always use the VIN for the OEM website, because you're going to get one important thing that you won't get if you don't put the VIN in. We'll talk about that in a second.
So for this particular situation, we went and we got a VIN from a 3 Series. We thought we'd start with the 3s. Turns out we didn't get much further. But we got a VIN for the 3 Series. We have entered our VIN, and this is where it takes us to. So now I know when the status of the warranty, when the warranty went out. I know the service history of the vehicle. I know any recalls down the technical campaigns at the bottom. If there's anything pending on this car, it's there for me. I know the color. And now I have the body code. So for people like me, which molding and trim package, and
it's an F30.
This quarter is good for these years on this body, and it's like, oh my God, which one? This helps answer those questions for me.
And there's a lot of cool things. Just I know you're going to click through here, but you got repair instructions on the F30. But they, look at all the other stuff that they've got in there. I mean, you could click around, and you got your torques, your technical data, repair and maintenance, operating fluids. I mean, there's a lot there.
You'll get your build sheet for this vehicle. You'll also find out what it's equipped with, what it's not equipped with. So that can be an assistance when you have to look up some of the stuff, ADAS, let's say, for example. Or does it have this? Does it have that? Obviously, your recalls, talking specs are huge for a lot of this stuff. And, so this is the nice thing when you do have your VIN that you can put in there, and you get the actual information for that vehicle. Not just the body line.
Build data is critical. So as we, as cars change, we used to say we knew a bumper had sensor because it had a little circle in it, right? And then we had a procedure for how to paint or not paint them, and then someone even invented little tabs to cover them like little masking tape. So now they're gone. Right, bumpers are flat and the sensors are behind them, and I can't necessarily walk up to a vehicle anymore and know exactly what it's outfitted with without teardown. So specifically from the estimating standpoint, knowing that build data up front helps a lot. I want to be crystal clear here. What we're looking up is not the requirement of the technician to repair the car. This is the basic information that the estimator, damage assessor, or blueprinter needs to start looking for. We haven't even gone to the car yet. We're not even walking out of the car yet to write a single line on the estimate or do anything. This is part of our research process. So again, up at the top, you're going to find the tab that says Repair Instructions. You click there. It brings you to this screen, and that little plus sign next to where it says Unified Parts Group, I hit there, and now I am into my technical data and documents.
Now let me ask you one question. How much help did I give you with this that I'm very proficient with this?
No, I clicked around most of the afternoon.
And I what I did with Kristen was like I normally would train a shop. I'm going to tell you how to get there. I'll tell you, where you're going to wind up, a click around and let you feel around a little bit. That's the only way you're going to really learn these systems. I will agree that Mercedes-Benz, and we'll eventually do Benz, is very difficult until you learn the process of how to think. the way Benz wants you to think to look up the information. Here, this is...
It just sounds wrong.
You got to think the way they want you to think. And look, every class I go to at Mercedes-Benz, we all in the class, all 10 of us, we get broken off into 5 teams of 2, all have to look up the information and explain it to each other, because it is a little difficult on how they do it, because it's different from everybody else. Yeah. And this is a little bit more friendly with point and click. Benz, you can actually get lost if you point and click the wrong spot. But this Kristen said at first, oh wow, that's a little difficult, it's not that easy. And then, after about a half hour, she's like, oh, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, actually, after about 45 minutes, she was like, man, I like this.
I like this. Now she's having fun. She's purposely clicking on things. So
a little learning curve, but not bad.
The point I'm trying to prove is anybody out there with no knowledge whatsoever, within an hour, you'll learn how to use this particular site.
I mean, I'm not like,
Well, you didn't know you didn't know any BMW site at all. You didn't know it, so.
From all those years, on the insurance side, we never went here. Very rarely, if something escalated up to corporate, we would get involved. But most of the time, we got involved and we brought the OE to the table with us, and they did all the work for us. Not going to lie on that one. So my knowledge of BMW was sketchy. I hated the German sites because of the body numbers, and that was always drove me crazy. If I was looking for a Malibu, I knew to go look for a Malibu. Right. Yeah. But when it came to the Germans, I wasn't looking for a 3 Series. I was looking for all these different F numbers.
An F30.
I had some other F language that I wanted to throw in there at the time. So. But now that we're in this page, you're going to scroll down to the a little bit further. You're going to see a section 41, which is body shell, and I think was it 41 and 45 is what we spent most of our time.
A lot of it's in the 41, 45 area.
Now for scanning and calibration and so many other things, you're going to have to go in different places. But if we did a show just on BMW, I believe BMW training is how many weeks?
Oh, it depends on the car. Usually 3 to 4 days per model.
Yeah.
So in this case, your 3 Series would be 2 or 3 days. Your 5 Series or 6 Series would be 2 or 3 days. You also have some online training that we have to do about the history of BMW. There's a class on how to learn the body numbers and where they come from, and where they're derived from, and how
I'm going to need that class.
and how you look at the information. But the one nice thing about
David and Josh, if you're watching, I'm going to need that class.
If you go to I'm not going to do the body numbers. Let's say you go to a 7 Series like this car here. You're still going to look in the 4100 and the 4500. It's the same number system. It's different repair information, It's a different car, but it's in the same category numbers. So same thing with Benz, Audi, Porsche, they all put it in that same category. So if I want to look up a bumper cover for, and I'm just going to make this up here because I don't know it by heart here, but if I'm looking for the bumper cover removal and it's in 4100 for the 3 Series, it'll be in 4100 for the X5, the X6, the 4 Series, the 3 Series, the 2 Series, the 1 Series, the 7 Series. It'll still be in 4100. I just got to open up. So that's the one thing that helps you. Once you learn how to think the way the Germans have it written out, it becomes easier for you. It becomes, there's a system to it.
Yeah, and I think that's what, at the end of the day yesterday, one of the things I was saying was there's a couple other things with BMW about their repair stages that I like well. I'd love to see a lot of other OEs copy that from them. But we definitely enjoyed this. Now, when I click the body shell section, before you dive too deep and start digging into support and floors and rails and roofs and all the stuff that you think you need to know about the panel you may be questioning, immediately on the right-hand side, some more of that golden information is going to pop up. So if what was on the first, when you logged in under general and repair and dent, now you're going to get some more stuff, and it's going to break down and explain a lot of individual procedures, parts, techniques, and things that are needed for BMW repair. So if you can see real quick there on the right, EMC screws, body dimensions, frame dimensions, gaps, and then general instructions on paint work, because now we have to follow OE recommendations and rules and requirements on paint. So we used to say paint couldn't kill you, now paint can kill you. So one of the things that's in there, what's BMW's position on corrosion protection? Boy, they really like corrosion protection.
Well, I love what they said. I mean, even in the show that we did, it was can a week on cavity wax. Well, what does it say there?
You might have a can of car.
No, I love this. The best repair is worth nothing if the subsequent cavity protection measures are not conscientiously carried out. So basically,
you need
everything
you need
that
lots
Sean
of it.
said from 3M. So
Absolutely.
when Sean said, he said, hey, it doesn't matter how great my welds are, it doesn't matter if I follow the protection or whatever. If I don't follow the corrosion protection procedures, all of that.
It's all
was
for naught.
All
Yep.
for naught. Yeah,
Yep.
I just the customer's still going to be in danger.
It's really great to see an OEM just put that in black and white. though.
Yeah, I may turn that into a T-shirt. I'm not real sure. So with a can of cavity wax on the front, and then the quote on the back, and a can of week underneath it, maybe our slogan. But
It's too bad that won't fit on a hat. We can take that to SEMA.
right, I can tell you that cavity wax hats. All right, but they got you what for doing for steel parts, what you're doing for aluminum. As with Honda and Toyota, who have some really great procedures, corrosion protection is not just for when I've welded on a panel. It applies to new, undamaged parts received from the dealership, taken out of the box.
Well, it says right here, look, new doors and lids, trunk lids, hood lids, have to have cavity protection put on them at the bottom areas and stuff to prevent against
After being painted.
after being painted. Plain and simple. I mean, this is no different than what we said. That Sean brought up and I brought up and Mark brought up in the class we did about cavity wax and corrosion protection. I mean, you have to do this stuff. You have to replace it as best you can to prevent the corrosion from happening, because we can't dip cars.
Yep.
Imagine if you had to disassemble every single car and the vat you would have to have inside your shop to be able to dip them through.
Every car would total.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. So the other thing to be conscientious, and it's probably a good time to mention, BMW has their own approved products list, so that would be the consumables. So when I'm working on one of their cars, I can't just go to the shelf and take off whatever else I have. So whatever my chosen cavity wax or adhesive or seam sealer or whatever is in my shop, when I'm working on a BMW, that's out the door. And I'm going to have to do what BMW tells me. And for here, there's 2 different sizes of their cavity sealant spray, cavity wax that you can buy. Those are the part numbers for it. BMW says put it on. Plain and simple. If you don't do what BMW says, well, you didn't fix the car right.
The easiest thing to do is order from the manufacturer. We have cabinets at the 2 shops I'm mainly at all the time. My shop, exclusive, and then MIC, I'm at a lot. They have actual cabinets that just have Benz, Audi, Porsche, Volkswagen, and all the stuff that they need that they can keep without a born-on date that's going to go bad. They keep in there. Even adhesive, because they know BMW. They go through a lot of adhesive on the BMWs, so they can buy stock of like a case of it, because they know within a month they're going to use it. There's rivets. There's all sorts of stuff, and then we have separate drawers with the known clips. All the clips are in, the extra clips are inside the cabinets, but now you don't need to mix anything. So now when you need more cavity wax for the BMW, it's in the BMW section. If I'm going to go and I'm doing a BMW and a Mercedes-Benz, I'll go to both cabinets. If it's the same product, not a problem. If I'm using different products, I have it there at my fingertips. And it's set in, it's almost like a supermarket within your own body shop.
Yeah, and you just go in and check it out. The great thing about a part number means it's pretty easy to put that on an estimate.
Well,
right?
exactly. So you got an invoice, you can put it on the estimate, and then even if you don't put it on the estimate, do it for free. At least you're doing the right product.
And most of the dealers wouldn't know this unless they're not a lot of people order it. The dealership doesn't usually order it, so you would have to give the parts manager,
the part number.
or part guy, the number. He'll get it for you, and it makes it that much easier for him and for you in the long run.
Scrolling through there, when it comes right under that, when we get to that general under body shell, one of the other things you get to is material identification. And so we have a great panel identification here. And oh wait, I got to know the body numbers to know what the panel is made out of, aluminum, plastic, or steel. I find my body number in there. So if I'm thinking about what's repairable, not repairable, we'll get to a little bit of the guidelines.
And there's a lot of numbers there. And I'll tell you this much. When you go to the certified training, they give you a sheet each time you go of all the body numbers, because sometimes there's a new model that comes out, there's a new body number, or the 3 Series changes enough that it loses that body number and it goes to a different body number. So we'll get that listing so we understand what it is, and there's a cheat sheet I utilize for myself. But if you ever get confused, seriously, all you got to do is Google under Wikipedia, let's say. You can Google in Wikipedia, BMW F01, F02, and it'll give you the listing of each one. That's a quick, fast way of getting the information. So at least you start to get acclimated to the the vehicles you're working on and exactly what they're looking for. Because they make a lot of the vehicles the same, obviously.
And normally your estimating system, when you pull it up and put the VIN in, it'll give you the body number there too.
You
got to look for it.
But I always tell people, for me, material identification in the estimating systems has been a little hit and miss.
No, I'm just saying from the body code.
The body number they'll give you.
Body code.
So if I get the body code here, I get the body code through the estimating system.
And I will say this much, All Data is good at that too. You can look up in All Data. So like, let's say you wanted to find out what all those F numbers are and you have All Data, but you're using the BMW site. If you go 2015 BMW, and it gives you the list of cars. Just open the cars. You'll see the 3 Series, and in parentheses will be the body number.
number.
And that'll help you out too.
My thing for this, though, is I think too many times when we're trying to decide panel repairability by substrate, we're using what we consider the color coding in the estimating systems, or the parentheses. And
not always. Yeah,
there's so many variables and instances where we've had things that are just absolutely wrong.
You know, I'll give you a perfect example. Volvo, for example, will be in the estimating systems as ultra high strength steel, UHSS, for the rocker panel. Well, it's an outer panel, and it's actually, the Europeans classify a high strength steel as ultra high strength steel. And then their boron alloyed steel and stuff like that is advanced or extra strength steel. AHS or EHSS. So this can get confusing because there is a sectioning procedure. You're like, wait a second. I know you can't section or do any type of repairs to ultra high strength steel, and that's the problem. That's where this classification comes in an issue. So the database systems are correct. It's the classifications of it that become an issue. And that's why I tell people sometimes you got to look up megapascal strength or go to their site and find out what's going on.
Yeah, and one of the things I learned from my conversation last week with some of the BMW folks was that while the 3 Series particularly is mostly steel, when we get into the M packages, some carbon fiber and some things are going to come to the table.
Yes.
So knowing my material identifications and knowing that body code, not letting the estimating system tell me what is aluminum or steel or whatever when I'm making my repair decisions is critical. You may. One of the things
we
I
love this part.
We love this.
Yes.
So one of the things I love about what BMW does is they classify body repair levels. There are 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3, and we'll show you a little bit later as we get to procedures. As you're going through procedures, it automatically will tell you what level of repair BMW classifies this, and within those levels there are certain requirements. So Mark, talk to us a little bit about the levels.
Well, so level 1, regular basic bolt-on type stuff, outer body, skin components, that kind of stuff. So level 1 is going to be your kind of your basic, you know, you place a fender or something like that. So now body repair level 2, this is in level 3. The big difference between the two is whether you're going to put it on a bench or you're going to not have it on a bench. So when we look at like the 3 Series here, we replace the quarter panel. In that particular case, it says body repair level 2. Well, what does that tell us? Very simple. We're not going to have to put it on a bench. Now, if we're on a 5 Series or a 7 or one of those, and it says it's a body repair level 3, it's going to be on a bench. So if we see body repair level 2, it's going to be without a bench, and level 3, it's going to be with the bench. I mean, it's actually really simple.
Yeah, and that's a good key to me for estimating, because if I have to bench a car, it doesn't mean I'm necessarily setting up and measuring a car, right? And then maybe I have to set it up and measure it, but then I'm also going to have to pay to re-bench it for the repair process, and then I'm going to have to pay dry time, or I'm going to have to push it in the paint.
I mean, it pretty much explains it here. You have you have a panel that you're replacing. Let's say someone backs into the car and punches a hole in it with a trailer hitch, okay? And you're going to change the quarter panel. Yeah, you probably don't have to bench it or anything like that according to their level 2 body repair. But if you have somebody that backs into the car and bends the outer wheelhouse and the floor extension panel along with the quarter, then you're probably going to have to do a body repair level 3. And I'll be honest with you, you know, from going to all the certification programs, all the Germans do this. They all have like a 3-level tier of repairs. Even shops they have. Audi's popular for doing that with their shops. They have 3 different tiers. Benz does it. Obviously BMW does it. So it's probably one of the smarter ways, like you said, to actually classify their damages and who can do the repairs and what has to be done to it.
And it also just reduces the friction.
Yeah.
When somebody says, you know, I got to put it on a bench, and it's it's a 3, and we can say that, it's very simple. It's level 3.
Yeah, so this breaks it down a little bit, but straightening the outer skin, so body repair level 1 would just be straightening. A lot of kind of PDR level 1 can happen a lot. That's going to be your straightening of your aluminum, your steel, repairing of plastic, glass replacement, and analyzing carbon fiber. All that's considered level 1. So let's talk about dent repair a little bit, because BMW has some really strict guidelines on what is and isn't repairable, what you can do, and then they give you some great training on how to fix their cars, which is just fantastic. I definitely now, watching this a little bit more, I understand the value of the STEP program that they have.
Wait a second. Did she just get it? I thought this wasn't going to happen till, what'd she say before? Oh, Halloween.
So they always say that their step techs are photos all over the country, and now you kind of get it. If this is the kind of stuff.
I believe almost every program out there right now has a former BMW step program person that's involved in their certification program, that has a hands-on training program.
Yeah.
Out there right now, I was with Taylor from Mercedes-Benz last week in a class, and we were talking about Walter Malik and BMW and the train. But almost everybody Walter Malik has touched as a trainer and taught and cultivated them are part of some sort of program.
Yeah.
Sean Hart and Kelly and everybody out there has been along with Walter at one time or another from BMW, and all these guys started a step program, guys.
Yeah, well, you think about
it's amazing.
Everybody that's coming out of there from David now, who's kind of the collision tech and industry, to Josh, to Gabriel, who was there before, to Nick Brown, to Sean, to everybody. I guess there's a reason why they're all so cool people, and we like them. So there's some people we don't like. We'll talk about them later, but these people we do. So the main thing, they're pretty. What you can and can't work, making sure you don't overstretch, making sure you don't work hard, making sure you don't overheat. But BMW actually has a written standard. The dent must be repaired within 2 millimeters. The metal finishing must be 2 millimeters because you can have no more filler over that than that.
Yep.
So if you're looking at a panel and you're judging repair, replace, and you start to think about your metal finishing, and you meet all of I have the right tools, I'm not using a stud gun burning through the panel, and I can finish the metal and get it within 2 millimeters, you can fix it. If you can't, cut it off and put a new one on. BMW's pretty cut and dry
So
about
basically, you got to be a real good metal expert in this case. If not, maybe you want to get a PDR guy in who is pretty good at straightening metal, obviously, because their job is to do it. So you don't have to put body filler, but if you have damage that requires filler because it's scraped or anything, you may want a PDR guy or learn some PDR work techniques to be able to straighten the panel as best as humanly possible, keep it within that 2 millimeter range, and ensure the fact that that a thick area of body filler when you're done with it. They want a very thin coat on there, and that's basically for longevity, expansion and contraction of the panel and stuff. But if you look at that first everything up to the very last little paragraph there, that's almost all the stuff that iCar talks about in their either aluminum panel repair class or their steel panel repair class, where they talk about, and you can see where iCar takes a lot of the OEM repair information and condenses it down to, here's the basic rules. And they're all going to say basically, Benz is not much different in this, neither is Audi. So they're going to say about the same type of thing, but they cover topics that some other OEMs don't cover, which is good.
The key system and some other things are great here. This would not be go to my toolbox and grab my old spot welder from 1985 and pull that out and stud some pins on there and go crazy on it. So when it talks about avoid overheating a small area, that's kind of what it's talking about.
And they also don't want you, once again, avoid overstretching to avoid work hardening and avoid heating area. They don't want you doing metal shrinking on the panel either. Because if you've got to do metal shrinking to shrink the panel, you're never going to get to that 2 millimeters, and that means the panel is overstretched and you shouldn't be repairing it anyway.
Right, so some great guidelines there. But then
Achtung!
So they go a little bit further.
Yeah.
I love
God bless
these. I love being able to say this. They go a little bit further because it's not then just about the sheet metal with BMW. There are some sensors on certain panels, and they give us the guidelines of where those are located. And based on where those are, I've got to be careful about repairing in those areas. So we want to be door pressure sensors will limit what you can and can't do on a door skin.
Well, you got to be very careful with these new door pressure sensors. Is if I walked over and I kicked that door, this door, the BMW.
Don't kick my door.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Let's test it. If I kick the door as hard as I can, and I now change that air diameter that's inside that door area there, that door capsule, that car's unsafe to drive, because then not enough air is going to push through there to actually have that sensor work. You might have now pushed in the door 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 millimeters in if you put a straight line across it. And now if you get hit again, the airbag will read differently because not enough air is being moved through there. And a lot of these doors, and we just went over this last week in class at Mercedes-Benz, which is similar to this BMW. When you take these door panels off, a lot of the doors are encapsulated. The weather barriers, if there still is a vapor barrier, most of them have a cassette.
It's got to go back in.
It's got to go back in. You can't just cut it. And that's why now it's hard to cut with a razor blade. It just doesn't slice wide open or rip open. You got to cut that thing pretty good. It's a thick piece, and it's glued on really, really well. The reason is they need to keep that air in there. notice also a lot of times with the windows, the side glass, there's an extra seal on the inside, or like its own little rubberized belt molding on the inside to keep not only sound in, but also keep that air in there as best they can. The little grommets that go around the panel clips have to be put back on there. All that stuff is part of the sealing process.
Part of the system.
That you can screw up one of these air pressure airbag sensors. So they moved them off the pillars, put them in the doors now, so a door cavity that you have a big dent in the door can cause an issue and make it not safe to drive.
So you mean putting duct tape around that to seal it up?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Also, just choosing to throw it away
Yeah.
and not reinstall
Yeah, not put it
not
back
an
in.
option either.
Yeah.
Well, how
not
many
an
times have
option.
we seen that, though?
Oh,
All the
lots.
time. I mean,
Yeah.
you can still walk through shops today and you can see them peeking out of the top of trash
My
cans.
funniest was, I remember the guys used to cut them off real nice and neat. It was like, wow, you did a really nice job. And they stick it to the wall by their toolbox. But they didn't put it back together. So now I got put back together, and the guy's got like 30 of them sticking to his walls. Like, those are real nice. You did a nice job taking it off. Why didn't you give it to somebody to put back on?
Well, no, I
Or
just
buy a
wanted
new
to
one.
cut around it. I didn't want to expose that sticky garbage that Honda's famous
Right.
for, right? I didn't want to expose that, but I wanted to get that out of my way, so I just left the plastic over the sticky stuff, cut the hole, put the door trim panel back. It's good, right?
Yeah.
Well, some of the real, yeah, but see, if you're a real body man, you just rip a hole in it with your hands, like you kind of like a cat kind of clawed its way through, and you just reach in there and do whatever you got to do, and just leave it that way.
Yeah.
Well, and then the bad part is, from a sensor standpoint, there's no computer that's going to pick up that happened.
No.
So there's not going to be any light. It's just not going to function.
Yeah.
Right.
And in this case, also want to pay attention to sensors that are located within the bumpers as well. We're going to talk about that in some upcoming slides coming your way. So let's talk about body repair level 2. So we had the overview, right? Does it involve a bench? But it may involve these things. What are some of the things, Mark, it's going to involve in level 2?
Well, obviously, it may involve replacing outer panels, quarter panels, and those kinds of things, sectioning type repairs, different things like that. So, bottom line is that it's not just a straight cosmetic conversation, but it's not a heavy-duty structural. It's kind of in the middle, and your big difference is we don't need a bench.
But I do need cavity sealing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
You need a cavity. Definitely need cavity sealing.
Yeah.
And when you get to this level, when you start changing out of panel parts, a lot of times they require bonding with rivets, and now you have the EMC screws that you're going to have to get, and that's a whole procedure in itself to know how to put those on.
We're coming to EMC screws.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we'll kick it up a notch. Level 3, obviously, we're now on the bench, and we're going to be welding. We're going to be spot welding, mag welding. We're going to be.
Yeah, and I know we started the program off with this, but again, we're still just writing the estimate now.
Yeah.
We got to know this when we write the estimate. Not when
For
we're
a
fixing
lot
the
of
car.
reasons. So not only does it tell me what consumables I may need, what the extra procedures and labor is going to be, but also how much time is going to be involved in this and how much space in my shop this is going to take up. There's a difference between a car that has to stay on the bench. Maybe Larry, you have what, 20-something Silettes in your shop?
All at the Mid-Island, yeah, they got about 20 select benches.
Yeah, I have one. Right? So if that car's got to stay on that bench for the entire repair process, I have to think about that. And I have
you
to
also
figure out the
got the
work
bond-
We're not
bonding
bringing any
afterwards.
more other level 3 repairs.
You got to remember, a lot of the
During that time
bonding
period.
requires it to sit on that bench unmoved, for a specific amount of time. So that's another thing you have to take into consideration when working with these bonding, riveting type vehicles. Aluminum shops have that down pretty pat.
So as an estimator, I'm not only thinking about the time that my technician has actually working on the vehicle, but then I have to allow myself to be compensated for work loss because that's occupying all my stuff at that time.
Correct.
One shop may classify it as work loss. One shop may just say that's a $200 an hour labor rate to work on that car or whatever. But different ways to think about that as an estimator. So let's talk about front bumper covers. So pretty soon, I imagine this is going to change. But right now, if you are working on a bumper cover and it is in the area of a sensor, BMW says, hey, don't fix that.
Right.
So you have a warning that says there can be no mechanical damage, and for Germans that means a scratch, a dent. There can be nothing wrong, and you can't do any work or repainting within a 10-centimeter radius of that sensor.
Right.
So it's not like I can't just fix over the sensor. I got to go out. I got to get this radius because that's the lens in which it sees through and operates. So it's like beer goggles, right? And I have one goggle that's like 20 times and one goggle that had no beer, and I can't see what's in front of me. So no stickers, no nothing. Honestly, I think probably you're going to see every OE, including BMW, which is kind of, no one can tell me yet. It's not official, I guess, but there's going to be don't touch a bumper at all.
Yeah.
Not even just in the radius of the sensor. Just don't touch them. Stop touching them.
And we're seeing that. You know, it's not just a BMW conversation. Nissan brought some stuff out a while ago, and yeah, I agree with you. We're going to see where they're saying just don't fix the bumper.
Yeah.
Well, Benz already has a lot of that out there for their cars because they work through a sonar type system with their, and some of their radar. Like most of their front bumpers, you can't paint the front of the bumper more than one time. There's too much paint on there. In the back, you can't paint it more than twice on the sides. So like the back of the bumper, you could load up with 40 feet of body filler, and it's not going to affect the sensors.
Not the
the
sides,
sides, you paint it more than one time over the factory paint. Now, all of a sudden, your Parktronics, lane departure, everything like that doesn't work properly, and the light's constantly on beeping. And this is where Benz is getting into that portion already. I believe BMW is going to follow that route, and I'm not going to give it away now, and I don't want anyone else to give it away, but 10 centimeters, not millimeters, 10 centimeters. Go look up and do the calculation on how many inches 10 centimeters is, and you might be surprised about how many, there's 4 sensors usually in the front of the bumper. So do the calculation and figure out how much overlap you got there and say to yourself, well, wait a second, some of this stuff is not repairable in many cases, and this is where you're going to wind up with this issue.
I want to be clear that this isn't just repairable, right? So it's not a matter of I have a scratch or something on the bumper that's going to need to either have some minor filler, repair, plastic repair, or refinishing done. This would also mean don't blend into that area. So if you're within that frame, let's say I'm working on that quarter, and there's no blending into that bumper.
You got to remember they're fascias, and unfortunately these fascias, because of the thickness of material, sometimes it has to be seen through the plastic material, the substrate itself, and then through the paint material. But now you also have, with all the other ADAS stuff that's going in there, just paint alone can block it. And now you're going to wind up with probably a lot of replacement of bumper covers.
It's my beer goggles. This one's had 20 drinks. This one's had 2. We're going to see things different.
And unfortunately, when you take different autonomous type vehicles, like recently there was a car that was Uber down in Arizona, and not to go crazy with it, but something went wrong there, and something happened. Now, I'm not saying the car was repaired, but if it was repaired, they would start to look and see what's the history of this car and everything. Oh, geez, they blended the bumper. I mean, this could fall back even if it wasn't a shop's fault. So we got to really pay attention to this because this is becoming potentially life and death.
Yeah, and I want to drive this point home. The reason one of the first things out of the gate and the repair procedures that we pulled as bumper covers is we do understand there's a lot of pressure out there right now around plastic repair. It's being pushed really hard. It's kind of become the latest and greatest thing, and this is one of the reasons why plastic repair just doesn't really work in some situations. So, I've seen a lot of posts lately of people bragging about what they can do with bumper covers. That's, it's just, it's a no.
Well,
it's just
on older bumper covers without any ADAS stuff. Listen,
knock yourself out.
I'll be honest with you. In New York City, even the shops that are heavily DRP'd and were required under the DRP programs to buy these welders, even those insurance companies aren't writing for bumper covers. Aren't writing repairs. They're writing for bumper covers. Even if they're aftermarket, imitation knockoffs, they write for them. Why? Because they know in New York that everyone parks by feel. Okay, that's how there's been Parktronics in New York since the early 1920s, because everyone just backs up. As soon as I bump into somebody, okay, I went back far enough, and then you pull forward and you bump into somebody else, you go, okay, I'm in the spot. and the electronics they didn't need, they park by feel. And this has been an issue, so they know that. So it's not worth the risk or the dealing with it for a lot of these bumpers are cheap enough,
No, I'm still a little baffled that it was a requirement for DRP, but that's okay.
Well, and what's funny is I just recently rented a car in New York for the Northeast Trade Show, and they said, okay, any damage on the bumper, no matter how great it is, doesn't count.
Doesn't count,
I'm like, geez, what can I do?
We'll leave it on leases. Even lease returns. The bumper could be hacked up. It looks like literally you put like five or six 5-year-olds at kindergarten class, and they're all sitting there with like a tiny little hatchet that has like a little round circle at the end of it, and they just sit there and just tap the bumper all day, because there's 9,000 of those across the back of most cars' bumpers after parallel parking in New York City. It's horrendous.
Yeah, it's just I said the bumper cover thing is changing. Yep. I understand why people are trying to push more repairs and whatever, but this is probably not an area.
This is safety.
Yeah, it's a safety issue.
It's a safety issue.
And for the record, that would also qualify for slot repair, so it's not just damage on the 10 centimeters is 10
Yeah.
centimeters, folks.
Yep.
So just, we're not playing with that. Now, we looked up a quarter panel procedure, and what we love, right, immediately, that little information sign, those little eyes and the little finger saying, hey, dummy, look here, read this. That's my version of what it's telling me to do.
Yeah.
All of that information right there is really for the estimator. When it comes down to the procedures about pulling it off and what you're going to do to put it back on, that's for your technician, but everything up across the top there, estimator.
And the nice thing about being, and this is why I try and stress to everybody, always use the OEM website, and don't give me the stupid excuse about price. All those hyperlinks are in blue in this particular series. So you can click on that and go. You'll get this same exact looking picture from AllData, let's say, but the hyperlinks aren't there.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you can't find the information, so you wind up spending 3-4 hours on AllData trying to find the information or not caring about it, versus on this, I would tell you just click on Body General. Oh, I read this already. Strip down vehicle. It actually tells you how to disassemble the vehicle and what process to disassemble it, and it does tell you that you should be wrapping all the components to store them. BMW also requires of the approved shops like I am, or the certified shops, which is through the dealership, that's owned by the dealership, every BMW has to be covered inside the shop while being repaired. So you walk into a BMW shop, they should all have plastic covers on every single car that's inside the shop.
It's not just throwing pieces on a parts card.
No,
assembling them
no,
there.
everything's got to be wrapped up and sealed.
So it would point me to know that I need to make sure that I understand the body general and the general repair methods and procedures for BMW, that I understand the strip down procedures of the vehicle. This may also help me understand additional operations.
Okay, now
things that I
big
should
question,
be-
Kristen, on this car. Do you need a bench on this or not?
I do not, because I am very clearly being told that I should observe the repair stage 2 procedures.
Perfect, which doesn't need the bench.
Right.
If
It's very simple.
If you would go to, let's say you also had the outer wheelhouse, you went to that procedure, it's going to say procedure, observe, repair stage 3. So now that would overrule this too, so then the car would have to go on the bench. And this is why it's important to read the instructions. Another thing you can do also is, you see the at the top corner there, it's 4135 101. You could, if you knew the title to that, and you wanted to save it and do quick search, you can, 3 series, quarter panel replacement. I can make a little cheat sheet and put 4135 101. When I go and open it up a week from now to do another one, I can type that in at the top of the search bar once I'm on the VIN, and it'll actually bring up this document. If there's any changes on it, it'll automatically be there.
Right.
They're not going to do 101.1, 101. They just change the document, and that's the end of it. So that does save you time with the document numbers.
The other thing that it tells me here really nicely is it tells me, one, I need the quarter panel, right? Gotta buy that if I'm going to be replacing it. But it tells me that there's some other things that I'm going to need there. So not just consumables, but if you're going to replace the quarter panel, here are some other parts or body parts that will be required. Does it say recommended?
Nope.
No, it says required. Here are some other things that will be required.
But if it did say recommended, we would consider that.
We would consider that to be required.
Required.
But for those that go, man, they always don't really spell it out for me. No, they kind of
Kinda
do.
do.
That's right
Well,
there.
you got to
for
realize the difference is legally on some of the judgmental things. They're going to say, like oil. They're going to say recommended because you can do whatever you want. But if you replace this part, those parts have to be replaced also.
Correct.
You have to buy those things also because they get destroyed while changing it, or they're attached to the quarter, and these new pieces have to come in for whatever reason. They're not attached maybe to the quarter panel, or these are additional materials.
When we talk about, in CCC, I do love Susanna Gotch and that team puts out some really great reporting for us. And what they recently did in the crash course and said, hey, about 75% of the cars that were estimated last year should have been scanned but weren't scanned. I'd love to know how many quarter panels were bought, but then how those parts weren't bought with them. Those are the stats I want to see.
Well, suspension parts that don't have nuts and bolts bought with them.
Yeah. The other thing, so we're still in the estimator zone, right? We're not got to the technician yet and him putting the car on. The other thing that BMW very clearly spells out for me is all the consumables that will be required to put this panel on. They are not included and need to be charged for separately. So we know that we have the same adhesive but 2 different sizes. So we're going to need the large and the small of the K5. We're going to need the blind rivets, the punch rivets. We need 3 of the EMC screws. I need the cleaning agent. I need the cavity wax remover. And I need the D1 sealant on those. There are no substitutions.
Nope.
So our friends at Fuser have a great product that also has the Dow Chemical label on it. And I know it's awesome, but when it comes to BMW, even Fuser will tell you, please follow the BMW instructions. So they have that great new ad.
So, and again, and that's really important because sometimes you'll run into salespeople. Oh, this is exactly the same stuff. It's not.
It's not. And there's some cases where it may
And it might be, but do you really want to play that game?
But it's not. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's what I do respect.
You got to buy from the OEM, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Unless they tell you otherwise, or your training manager from that particular company tells you, yeah, you can use this instead. You know, on a BMW, unless Walter Malik's telling me to change it, I'm not changing it. You know.
Yeah, I was trying to talk to Fuser people, so Julie and Doug Craig into telling me that it was going to be the same, and I could say it on the show, and they were like, "Nope, must buy from BMW. Nope, must buy from BMW."
Yep.
So, I did appreciate the honesty.
That's
so,
great.
But just really quickly, there are different adhesives in the BMW manual, just like there are different adhesives in the Chrysler and the GM offerings and everything, and they very specifically have the different types of adhesives. They're called out by a number. They have a part number in different sizes. You know what you can order them. You want to make sure that you are always using the correct adhesive, because if you don't,
This is like pretty straight.
yeah, pretty straightforward. If you use the non-approved BMW adhesive, people die. If you use the approved BMW adhesive, the panel reacts as it is supposed to in the collision.
Well, you can see here they designed this particular part to crush much like a can would. So it's going to come straight down on itself with the applied impact force. Same applied impact force, but the lap shear strength this way of the material was different. It could have been, what looks to me was much stronger and didn't have any type of ability to let it collapse upon itself. Remember, some of this adhesive, oh, it's stronger adhesive. Yeah, that's great, you made it
not necessarily
stronger,
we want.
but they wanted that weaker adhesive because they wanted these gap areas, or this ability for it to let the material, the metal substrate here, to crush and fold in this particular fail, in this type of fashion. This is why it's very important to realize, you know, you can over-strengthen something and actually make it worse.
Yep.
Yeah.
In this case, and this is what happened here. This would affect airbag time, and this would affect occupant protection. This could probably really seriously, significantly cause a lot of damage to a person.
Yeah. We just don't want it stronger. We don't want it weaker. We
Right.
want it the
The
way
same.
they said.
Yeah.
The same. Yeah,
Why
we
is
need
that
the
so
same.
hard to get through to everybody? I made it stronger. No. Okay. And then EMC screws. So I had some fun learning about these. I learned that they frequently tend to increase or change or fluctuate in repair procedures as the radio stations come in fuzzy. So I got it. I'm gonna tattle on myself a little bit. There's a chance, maybe 10-year-old me 10 years ago would have went, "Why am I putting screws in the quarter panel after I've bonded it on?" That aren't self-tapping sheet metal screws, right? But
This is before Halloween.
Yes.
Right,
Okay,
right.
good.
Yeah.
She figured it out.
Yeah.
So this is another part I would like to know how many of these actually get ordered and on cars. But is it just a screw that holds the panel on while it gets while the adhesive cures, Larry, or is there a function for these screws?
No, they make the electrical function so that stuff that's attached to the rear body panel goes through the quarter panel. It completes the electrical circuit, the grounds and stuff, because the adhesive is different that we use versus what I mean, a lot of the adhesive that the manufacturer uses is baked at about 400 or 500 degrees when the car's getting electro deposition primer sprayed on it, or when the car's getting a final bake. This stuff hardens up or cures. We can't get that type of heat, so we have to do something a little bit different, and we're required to use a different material, so we have to do this stuff, and then that stuff might be different chemical composition, different than what the factory uses. So at the factory level, they can use rivets and glue, or in the case where they do resistance welding, or weld bonding, I should say, in the aftermarket field, we're using rivets, so you're not getting that same connection.
Right.
And they
That's the
need
big
these.
issue.
They need these screws to complete the connection between
Yeah.
panels to
So-
really make sure it's there.
So this is a prime example, kind of a little bit even about when we were talking about quarter panels last week, where it's not that way from the factory.
completely different.
I'm not going to see these when I tear a car down,
Yep.
Nope.
but I'm going to put them back in it when I put the car back together.
And this is a proper repair based on what they told you to do.
And I'm going to put sealant around them so that I don't risk corrosion protection.
Correct.
And I got a very specific size hole that they have to go into.
yep.
These are great instructions on how you do these.
Well, and how this is going to show up. This is going to show up where, you know, depending on the circumstance, but it could be where the radio station comes a little fuzzy. And you just can't figure that out. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, we left that out.
Well, I mean, one of the samples that I was getting my education last week was, hey, we had an issue with some electronical feedback, static in the radio stations, and it used to be 3 screws and now it's 2 in the panel, or it used to be 3 and now it's 6 or whatever.
But you could have this situation where you have a shop that follows 3/4 of this and doesn't put the screws in, and then the customer complains about the radio not working, and now you have a situation where, well, the top-notch mechanic there is going to change the antenna maybe, the antenna wire. Oh crap! Let's pull the dashboard, pull out the radio unit head,
or you're
and let's change that. So now
let's
you're
be honest,
now
you're
you're
probably
in
gonna
$6,000-7,000 worth of stuff. And guess what? You could change every electronic component in the car, and guess what?
Not gonna be
it's
different.
still not going to change the radio signal.
Honestly, this is probably a situation where you look at the customer and go, "We didn't fix your radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't fix your
We
radio.
just did your quarter
It's not
panel.
It's not part of the claim.
It's not part of it. We don't know what you're complaining about." But also, if you don't do the sealant properly, it may work for the first 6 months or a year after they drive out of your facility, but when that corrosion protection starts around,
And once that gets in there, that becomes an issue.
Yep. Now I'm back with my radio problem a year later, but I didn't come back.
And
to
you're talking, it's not a big hole, so what
Yeah.
happens is, that can get corroded, and that can actually pop out or fall out or become loose, and now you're gonna have a ongoing on-off sporadic type, intermediate type static problem, and now it becomes a real annoying thing.
And this is where you really get the customer to go, my car has just not been the same since the collision.
And then
I
it winds
tried it
up,
again.
somebody does a post-repair inspection and winds up with horror stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you get the mobile pool.
That's
I now have a mobile pool, but I'm missing 4 radio stations. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
what do you complain about? Put a swimming pool in your back, in your trunk.
So one of the other things, obviously with the 3 Series, it's a non-welded corner. It's a completely rivet bond procedure. We have 2 different types of rivets here. We have a blind rivet and a punch rivet. Larry, what's the difference in those mechanical fasteners?
Well, the obviously this SPR goes through one panel into the second panel and grabs on there and leaves a very flush, flat area. The other one is typical what you would see with most rivets, but that locking collar in the back end of it has a certain structural capability to it. So each rivet is slightly different. You might be using a similar rivet tool that has enough pressure to collapse it, but these rivets are rated to a certain different degree to hold that area and stuff. And basically this all this sealing and all this riveting and stuff comes down to one thing from BMW, what we've been told is it's for corrosion protection.
Yep.
It really is. It's a lot to do with corrosion protection, corrosion sealing, and look, it's a lot easier to use riveting than it is with welding for many people. It's a safer, easier, quicker repair.
Now, just playing off of last week's show, would a used BMW quarter panel be an option?
Well, BMW says it in the 4100. General procedures, no. It's got to be a new OEM part.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah, but besides that, even if
But how are you going to get it apart? It was welded.
Right.
Now we're going to rivet it.
Well,
now
it's well bonded from the
Zero-
factory, so
zero
you're
edge.
going to destroy those
You're gonna
flanges.
well, but how are
yeah.
you going to get it off? First of all,
Right,
but
that's
second
what
of
I mean.
all, now how are we going to get a rivet into there to make it set up to? It's just not going to work.
The holes are too big.
So
it
as we
doesn't-
went
yeah.
through the same cadence that we went through last week, was do we have any reason that we can't follow the OEM?
And I think
then
the
it's
3
over.
Series is a great example of a car that we're going to repair completely different than it's built at the factory.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Well, any BMW basically in the quarter panel section is built completely
And
differently than how we're going to
BMW
repair.
and many of the German manufacturers, the repair when we're done with it is going to look different when we're done fixing the car than it looked when it came out of the factory.
Yep, absolutely. If you're one of those technicians that look at a car and say, I'm going to fix it just like the factory, or if you're a shop owner that has technicians that work for you that say, I'm going to fix it just like the factory, be afraid.
Yeah.
There's some different rivets that he used and stuff like that.
Well, you're going to be able to look at it and go, that's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, as you go through here, not only is it telling me the consumables and the numbers and the things so that I'm getting my estimate right, I don't have it. These are pretty expensive rivets. Larry, a piece price for those, what do they cost each?
Rivets
on
in general
average?
cost anywhere from 95 cents all the way up to $3 a piece, depending on which rivet you're going to use. In some cases, you need 100 rivets for a particular car. So, you really got to have it priced out right. The rivets really don't go bad at all. They don't corrode or anything. They usually have a coating on them. We have a bunch of rivets in the drawer because we go through a lot of them.
Yeah.
So we have a lot laying around.
But in reality, I've got maybe
some of these are very tiny,
a
so you can lose 'em.
$600 quarter panel, but I may have a $400 to $500 consumable bill that goes along with that $600
This
quarter
particular car, if I remember correctly, and don't quote me 100% of this, you're probably looking, I think, a $400 to
totally gonna quote
$500. It's between $400 and $500 in material alone.
Yeah.
As opposed to
I can't
Mercedes-Benz
give that away as a shop.
S-Class is about $1,200 in material. So
Well,
you've got a range there
yeah.
with these different vehicles of what you're going to have to purchase between material. The adhesive obviously is taking a lot of that price, up there. But I mean, you start adding up a bunch of rivets. You could easily have on a quarter panel, you could have 30 rivets. On a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, to change the rocket panel, you're looking at about 120 rivets.
Yeah.
Even at $2 a piece, start adding
That's
that up. It's
That's up.
expensive.
That's a big amount of money. The other thing that they do great in the repair procedures is they will specifically call out, like I said, tools and equipment and some things I need for the punch rivet extractor for this one. Just punched in really quickly, got here, and it tells me that I can get this from Reliable Automo. So Dave up in New Jersey can help me, assist me with getting this equipment.
You'll have this, and you'll probably also have.
Yeah, it gives me Dave's phone number.
Yes.
Right there.
For most of the German companies, you're going to have, well, BMW, you're going to have this. Also, the Express 800's on the program that gives you a bunch of different heads for a wide range of vehicles. Dave also exclusively sells that in the United States. So you'll have a couple of different, the OEMs are getting better with overlapping of rivet guns. A lot of them are picking up on the Express 800, which is nice because it has interchangeable heads. Cadillac just came out with their program. They offer a couple of, but they also picked the Express 800. You just buy the kit that says Cadillac on it. You already have the Express 800. Now you can just do the interchangeable heads.
You know, and I'm I'm going to jump into this because, okay, so I'm a regular shop, and I don't have one of these. And I buy the quarter panel, and I buy the rivets, and I buy the glue. Now I got to get a gun. What am I going to spend for a gun?
Well, you can buy the Big Daddy rivet gun, and if you get like two guys the size of like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day.
No, not that gun. The gun that is on the screen right now.
Oh,
that gun, the right gun.
Yes.
So what are we going to spend for that?
Tool. Yeah.
You could spend anywhere from some of the rivet guns on the low end, about $2,500, all the way upwards of about $15,000 for a rivet gun, and then like the Cadillac kit might be someplace in the range. I'll give you a range between $5,000 and $7,000, let's say, for just the heads for that. So if you have 5 or 6 different companies, Audi, Porsche, BMW, you're going to have $4,000 to $8,000 in heads for each one of these things. It usually comes with 3 or 4 different heads on there. You'll have literally boxes and boxes of stuff piled up of just kits, and we put, even though they have numbers on them, we put, what they're for so we can see it easily. BMW kit, Audi kit, so we know just what box to grab along with the standard.
So this kind of takes me right to where I wanted to go with this, is that, okay, this 3 Series pulls into and 3 Series is that's not an exotic car. It's a normal car.
Yeah.
And so it rolls in and it needs a quarter panel, and I can order everything, and I don't have this gun. What do I do?
And you can't fix it.
I may have to turn the car away.
Yeah. You don't borrow equipment and to learn how to use it on a customer's car.
No.
So if you're not equipped and trained, because just having the rivet gun itself or the welder, we're going to get to welders in a minute, doesn't mean you can make the repair.
There's a learning curve on these.
Pass it along.
Yeah.
And this particular car, we went and we found one on the lot, and we pulled a VIN, and this car's for sale for $22,000 right now. So this is not, a $100,000 7 Series or whatever. This is a $21,000 car, right? Yeah. But if I don't have the equipment, I can't fix it.
Yep.
And if I only see a few of these a year, then it wouldn't make any sense to have the equipment. So if I'm doing maybe a level 1 repair that doesn't require any of that, then I can write the estimate. If I get into my research and realize that it requires special tooling and training that I don't have, I have to walk back out in the lobby and go, Mr. Olson, thank you for your trust in us, and I'm so glad you came here today, but we don't have the right equipment to fix your vehicle, but I have called a couple of places, and I have found the BMW certified shop in the market that can assist you with this repair. I've called them. They're waiting for you. Please have a great day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's the world we're living in.
Yep.
The problem is that too many shops think they can fix anything. What's the difference between this BMW and that Chevy?
A lot.
There's a lot. And listen, when we're in class, I mean, there's probably maybe 20 minutes just on disconnecting the battery and reconnecting the battery alone. A battery. A lot of these German cars require you to have a computer to shut these systems down before disconnecting the battery. So, this is not just, this is not your mom's or dad's BMW from the old days.
It's not your dad's Oldsmobile, right?
Yeah. I know it's sad. There's too many technicians out there now go, what's an Oldsmobile?
Yeah. Well, they are removing the Buick badging from the back of it. Thanks, that's another. So look, moving right along, I picked a quarter panel because that's a pretty standard procedure. I picked rail just so we could see, some differences in there. And right away, BMW, the information section, remembering that is for us estimators. That's helping us make the decisions, repair, total, and what to charge. Right? Repair stage 3. So I know it's going to bench, and then I will learn later how long it's going to be on that bench and what all it's going to take. And then it tells me to do repair stage 3 and what it is. It gives me some things that I need to be aware of when it comes to bonding.
Only use their approved spot welding equipment.
Yep. So right away, level 3 means it's going on the bench. Like you said.
Yep.
There are only 3 benches it can go on. What are those three, Larry?
That
You
would
have
be-
all of them.
Well, it's actually
I only have 2 of them.
Funny enough, it's all the C's. It's car bench, Celette, and Carolina. And you know, plain and simple, if you're repairing it on anything else,
Nothing
under the
starts.
law, it's an improper repair.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. No one cares about your opinion or what you have to say. That's already going to screw you. Now, highly unlikely you're ever going to get caught because you repaired it on a different machine. You did something else already wrong to this car. So it's now become a bigger snowballing issue, and now this is just going to put the icing on top of the cake that's really going to get you pretty badly.
Yeah, so BMW actually in their repair manuals, their body guides, have some very specific reasons for the 3 systems they've chosen and are approved. The 6-point holding that is required for their cars, the why they use the fixture-based systems. I mean, they're pretty specific in these choices. It isn't just we like these
And most
3.
of the German, all the German companies with their training programs basically have this same type of examples of why they're picking whatever they pick. And plain and simple, I mean, this is going to give you the most accurate repair for what you're doing with it and stuff like that. So you have to follow suit. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, I want to say, right before SEMA, I made some posts online that I'd just gotten my first Celette. So the Savine XL is back there in the corner, being pushed around, and I put it. We got a 2-post lift in it and everything. That thing scared me to death. My entire career looking at Celette, just that was overwhelming. And I fought it until I was 42 years old.
Well, basically with the Celette and the car bench, the car bench and the Celette is similar as far as they're a jig type system. With the car bench, it's a universal. So it'll fit any car that they have measurements for, that they've been approved for. And with Celette, you'll rent jigs. But basically, those two.
Well, now we have the Chameleon system from Celette.
The 2 bench systems that will go ahead, and you're basically building the car on the frame machine. Then you're comparing the car. You're building the specs on the frame machine, then you compare the car to the body. As opposed to the Carolina, even though they have the Evo system, which acts like a jig fixture, it has to be measured with a measuring system to put it in the right place. So that's basically the different processes between the 2. Both give you the same repair, the same accuracy and stuff like that, but the fact is that you choose what you want to do. I know a few shops that have both Carolina and Celette. A lot of them will opt to put it on the Celette bench for like front rails when the motor's got to come out, and anything on the side of the rear, they'll usually use a Carolina.
Yep.
And that's just preference and a little bit of speed difference there.
And either one is acceptable.
My thing for me is I have really enjoyed learning that Celette system. It wasn't as scary as I
Did you just say that before?
thought it was going to be.
Yeah, before
All stuff I've been telling her for years that she didn't want to listen to.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on now.
What is this again?
Yeah.
Like this?
And I finally found a use for all those coat hangers I can no longer use when welding. They're great for lining up the fixture system on the slip.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
See?
That's the big trick that's to
Yeah.
let people know when you have it on a 2-post lift, you take hangers, you straighten them out, and you use them to line up your holes. So it's if you had to do it by yourself or with just 2 people, then you can move it around a little bit, and as it comes down, you see the little plumb lines you're hanging out.
So apparently you're not supposed to use the coat hangers anymore when stick welding.
Oh.
Didn't know. Yeah.
Or
so I had
bracing.
all these coat hangers that I'd been saving up. Now I have a use for them. So,
And I'm
Because
going
the
to say,
person thought you ever iron anything or hang it up.
I don't want to do that.
well, the reason why she has coat hangers is because somebody else does her.
Right.
Right?
So that's where she
It's
gets all
called
the
drop
coat
off
hangers
laundry,
from.
baby.
Drop off laundry.
So I'm going to say one thing. So about a month or 2 ago, we did a quick rendition about a BMW that's fixed in Russia.
Yeah.
And it pulled up, and there was this thing, and we took one look at it. It's sitting on this frame rack.
From 1974.
Yeah, and we said, okay, the problem with this car starts right
now.
here. And this is why we said it starts right here.
Yeah, it started right around the time he put it on that frame bench. That was, well, if I'm losing that term
So I said everything was
loosely.
going fine until right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now.
And this slide right here explains why.
And we're done.
And we're done. There we go.
So, but we'll go back to that procedure on the rail, and now they're telling me that for that rail, I'm going to do some spot welding. If I click approved where it says the blue, like Larry said, spot welding apparatus, it tells me what I can and can't use. And thankfully, we do have the CTR 12,000 here in the shop. So that's one of the approved welders on the list that you can use. Now, to go back through, and we thought about originally when we were putting this together that we're going to do the 3 and the 5 and the X, and we're going to talk about the things, and then we got.
This would have been a 6-hour program.
It would have
program.
been a 6-week program almost, right? But really quickly, you can see how you get in there, you get through the information, and then everything that you need to know is there. Obviously, scanning and finding your diagnostic information and calibration, completely separate section. Although this may be a brand that I would say let's go to the OE for. Let's go back to the dealership for some things.
Yeah.
But BMW does have some rules on straightening and repairing structural steel, and they've laid those out pretty plainly on what you can and can't do, and that if it is deformed in any way, if it is misshapen in any way, all of those convolutions in the design are there for a reason. It's not to make it pretty. Yep. So if there's anything that you can't get out, then you must replace it.
Basically, based on this alone, everything that our good buddy Arthur did was completely wrong.
Yeah.
And you know, this comes into why techs will go, I can do this, I can do that. I don't really care what you can do. You can't do it. And then someone will say, well, the car's going to total. Well, I didn't build it. I didn't wreck it. Not my problem. Yep. Get rid of it. You know what? Do me a favor. I'll package it up really nice and neat, and I'll even put the procedures in there for you. So when you sell it and Arthur winds up with it over in his country, let him fix it. Okay? I'll even give him the procedures. He's not going to follow them, but I'll give him the procedures.
One of the things we saw in the video, Arthur likes his torch, right?
Absolutely.
Loves his torch.
Can we
no
heat?
heat? No.
Zero heat. Everything must be cold. That's cold pulls. That's cold repair. That's cold everything. It's like the cold of Russia, but apparently Arthur hasn't gotten that yet. Those are their general. Then they have structural aluminum, because when we get out of the 3 Series and get into the 5, we're going to find a lot of cast aluminum, a lot of aluminum parts. Getting to the 7 Series, we'll see some carbon fiber, the carbon core, we'll see a lot of other things. But again, you cannot do anything on a cast part, period.
Yeah, and this is
You're
not
replacing
new.
it.
This has been, a cast aluminum part has been that way.
Yeah, you can't fix cast.
It's been that way for 25
And you got to
years.
keep in mind also, you get into the new 7 Series, got the carbon fiber in it, the new 5 Series that's coming out, the new X5, X6 is going to have the carbon fiber in there. You better really watch using an open flame torch. You might heat up something that you think is all metal, and it winds up being aluminum, which has a lower melting point.
It's on the floor.
A lot lower melting point, but the aluminum's wrapped around a lot of times carbon fiber or sandwiched with it. Now you're heating up what you think is steel, which is really aluminum, that's also attached to carbon fiber, and now you got a fire going on.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big, big problem.
Yep.
Yep, and then it basically tells you if you're going to try to straighten something, you can maybe straighten, but then you're replacing it, right?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff with the German cars, and I've said this before in other classes, you're not really using a pull tower on a lot of these cars. A lot of it, especially when you get into mixed material, you're basically chopping and changing whatever doesn't line up, and that's why they've chosen to select the car bench and the car liner with the Evo system, the Evo 3 being used most of the time for the measuring and the putting of the components, and that's it. If it doesn't line up, you're chopping and changing to the point that it does line up, or you're replacing the whole rail or whatever the case is. They don't want to hear nothing about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and especially when you got different mixed materials where they're riveted together with the glues, you start pulling, you start breaking glues, and it's just, and then you're not going to see it either.
Yeah. So kind of our recap here is we're going to look up each and every car each and every time before we go outside and touch it. We're going to do some massive research as an estimator, because there's a lot I need to know, not only about the repair procedures and what I can and can't do, but the consumables that I need to have, to the equipment that I'm going to have in the facility to decide whether I'm even qualified to write or touch this car, or get myself properly compensated, right? I may have more consumables than the price of the part by the time that I'm done with it.
You might.
There is no substitution of consumables. So while I have brands I love, and we talked about Fuser a lot today, when it comes to a BMW, just unfortunately, I can't do it. I'm going to buy the BMW products to do this car. And that if I follow through BMW with the way they've got their air is set up, it's going to give me a lot of information. It's going to point me back to the repair stages.
You're going to be clicking a lot of blues.
Going to be clicking a lot of blue links.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I think the biggest problem in the industry, based on what we've seen here in this BMW program alone, and we'll see this with the other German companies will do, is that shop owners don't hold their technicians accountable or their damage assessors.
Yeah.
You have to study at home, you have to study on your own time, you have to study to be good at your job, because bosses need to hold, or owners need to hold their people, their personnel, more accountable. Not the tail wagging the dog or the prisoners running the asylum. It's where, hey, look, you're expected to do this good. I mean, if we did the same thing that we did with doctors, that we do in the collision repair field, but there'd be a lot more people dead and wouldn't survive surgeries and stuff like that. So you have to get good at your job. And you can see just what it took for us to show you a portion of what you got to look up for the
We looked
for
up
the
2
quarter panel.
procedures, the quarter
Yeah.
panel and a rail. It's all we
Yeah,
looked up.
and you know, we went through a lot of stuff here, and you have to be on point for your job. You have to realize what you can and cannot fix. You have to realize what to look up, how to look it up, constantly look it up, and it's got to be done constantly to look up. And I've told this to guys before. Facebook, any place, classes I've taught across the country, and I always wind up someplace along the line. All of a sudden, the newbie comes into the class. Benz, BMW, Porsche, Audi, doesn't matter. And they got this attitude and they got this thing, and very quickly everyone else in the class knocks them down. And then after 2 or 3 classes, you think German. Now, I'm not saying that repairs are done better in Germany. I'm talking from the OEM training aspect. The Germans make you think differently about collision repair. And you see this guy who was once somewhat of a butcher, or even just a regular body man, I can fix anything, and then he starts to change his attitude and his way of thinking after 5, 6 years of being on the program. They change their way of thinking and realize the engineering aspect, the science behind the car and how it goes. And now all of a sudden the stuff that I was saying to them, they're saying to other people.
Well, let's be honest. The technician shouldn't be driving anything in the shop. So as we talk about the estimator, the damage assessor, the blueprinter, if I do my research, if I lay it out, then the technician is more apt to make the right repair decision because it's laid out for him in the roadmap.
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you. That could be a different. I mean, there was an argument. I won't say names or anything, but there was an argument on Facebook not too long ago in one of the groups that my name got put into there. And the person who was trying to name my name about something that I did for them for estimating didn't realize the 2 guys that he's arguing with are both guys I go to school with, training school. Matter of fact, I just went with one back in August for Audi aluminum welding, and was going right after that argument. That weekend, I was going to Benz with the other guy, and it was just funny. I was like, I was in school with both of these guys, and one of the guys happens to work for what people would call not a great shop because they're multiple locations and stuff. But this tech really has changed the minds of his management. This is the opposite of what you just said. The tech has changed the management aspect.
You can change the mind of the that's one thing.
And there's one particular shop that really changed it around. So, you know, the management has to buy into it. If they buy into it, understand the problem that comes in is a lot of these programs, except really BMW, don't have estimating programs, don't have estimate training programs at all. At least they do, and they can understand better what needs to be done. That can then trickle to the technicians, and they work cohesively as a team.
Yeah, estimators have to step their game up. Whether I'm an estimator, body shop, or an estimator.
Well, no, they got to be damage assessors. They got to stop being estimators, because I can teach anybody, like you always say. I can go to Starbucks and teach anybody to point and click stuff. I need somebody, and you know what? You don't have to think the way me and Mark do, or the way you do. You got to be able to think and go, okay, I know enough that I don't know this. Let me ask the tech his opinion, then let me go check in the system. But that's why I said that you might be doing more research.
Well,
than
I mean,
actually,
we talked about this in December when Mike was here, that every shop eventually is going to have one person. That's all they do.
That's what they do.
That's their job. Their
well,
research.
I said that day,
And bringing this back, home. If estimate is written correctly and all the appropriate parts and the rivets and everything that I need is on the estimate, then that technician, when he unboxes that panel and it's on the mirror-matched parts cart that we all have pushing around the shop right now, those parts carts don't do anything for proper repair if we haven't laid the road plan out in the beginning. So if we get our game together. Now, and then we need in-process QC, which we also talked about last week. So it's one thing the estimator puts it all together, but then who's going to come in and check behind the body man and make sure that's in.
That's why my estimating classes, I always try and teach everybody how to handwrite an estimate. Yep. Maybe not all the numbers, but handwrite everything out. Because if you handwrite it out, just like on our estimating program that's going to be coming out in the fall, handwrite everything, then put it in the computer. However the computer spits it out is one way, but at least you have that handwritten version so you understand better the concept behind it versus just point and click.
Yeah, and be a good estimator. I should be able to take the estimating system away and you should still be able to write an estimate. So, now, let's talk a little bit about what's coming next month. So Friday, if last Friday you would have watched Mike Anderson's webinar series with FCA, so Fiat Chrysler, he had Erica Schaefer and Dan Black on that episode with him. They dived into a little bit more Chrysler's repair procedures. This one's going to be really interesting because Chrysler does have some stuff that's available for free and pay. So it's kind of like the General Motors site. Yep. So we'll go through that. Mike will start us. He started us really with kind of a quick overview of the website and some things that are going on in his show. If you missed it Friday on the live, just like our show, no big deal. If you'll go to the Collision Advice website or to YouTube, you'll be able to find the replay of this. And I'm going to strongly suggest that you see this episode before you see our Chrysler episode next week. And if everything works out and travel and the stars align, Doug Craig from Lord will be joining us next month
And
as
Doug
we go
Craig
through.
used to be the collision repair manager for Chrysler.
Yeah, so
Actually,
he's kind of
Doug and I sat on a SAE board together. A very knowledgeable guy, and he wound up leaving Chrysler, and now he works for Fuser. So
Yeah.
I really hope Doug can make it. It would be great if he is here.
So our plan for the next show is a little bit different. So Mike's going to handle some of the website stuff. That should have
So
already
we're gonna
been.
work in conjunction, not to repeat it.
We're gonna kind of
We'll
not
get more
repeat that.
technical. Mike will be more the overview.
What's fun is that most of the stuff Mike's covered is stuff that Doug wrote.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
between when he was head of Chrysler and when he was also the president of the Automotive Engineering Association. So Doug is a fantastic resource. One of the things that we're going to do with Doug is we're actually going to do some hands-on repairs, and we're going to talk a lot about why Chrysler and Fiat has the position statement on everything goes back weld bonded, even when it's not from the factory.
Yeah. And Doug actually did that video interview, was part of that when he was with Chrysler.
Yeah.
Now he's with obviously Lord Fuser. So this will really give us a real big bang for your buck. Like we spoke about the quarter panel class last week when I said about Chrysler says no matter what, even if we didn't weld bond it, we want you weld bonded it back together. And why are you not using used quarters on Chrysler's all that weld bonded on? Very difficult to get off.
So this is exciting because this is my cheat, because in this show we don't bring the OEs to sit with us because we want to be able to say, I don't understand that, I think that's kind of
So
dumb.
we get to bring halfway the OE.
So we're bringing a former, so he technically is not the OE at the
Yep.
time. So I haven't.
Are you cheating?
No.
He said no.
No. It's like gluten-free bread that doesn't count as bread. Because that stuff tastes like a sock. I don't care how you cook it, it stuff's bad. So we're in good shape
It's like
there.
soy hot dogs. Is Gray done?
So let's hope Doug's travel schedule works out and he does get to join us, because that's going to be a fantastic episode and a different way of looking at OE repair procedures and why they are what they are from a guy who at one time in his life wrote those. So pretty fantastic. Don't miss the show, and we will see you next month on OE Live.
Thanks, guys.